Welcome back to Financially Forward. Today, we are focusing on the three most critical elements of lasting financial stability: goal setting, budget mastery, and building the buffer. Terrence, your story is a powerful illustration of why these three pillars must be in place. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share my story because I think a lot of young people, especially first generation Americans, can relate to what I've been through.
So let's start with your early financial strengths. You said you were doing everything right. You had discipline and you had a collective, clear goal. Tell us about that goal.
So, a bit about my background. I'm first generation American. My mom was really intentional about teaching us financial basics, particularly around credit. She helped us get secure credit cards, taught us how to build our credit responsibly, and she had this vision of me, my sister, and her were all going to pool our resources together and buy a family house. So, like I said, we were doing everything right, building our credit, staying on top of our bills, and I joined the Navy at 18, so honestly, I was doing pretty good for myself.
That is powerful goal setting, and it underscores a crucial strength: unity. Where did these take a turn?
So things took a turn before COVID. My mom needed a new car, and when we went to a dealership to get one, the salesman was really pushing this Mercedes Benz on her. Looking back, it was above her means. Her credit wasn't there to get it approved for herself, but mine was. So she asked me to co-sign, and I remember feeling this knot in my stomach, but I couldn't articulate why at the time that something felt off. Still, this was my mom, and I wanted to help her, so I did.
That financial knot is usually intuition telling you that the plan is missing a key safety net. Then the crisis hit.
Yes. So then COVID happened. My mom worked as a tour guide in New York City, and when the lockdowns hit, tourism completely collapsed. So she lost her job almost immediately. And suddenly, I'm in the Navy making a Navy salary for one person, trying to cover my own bills, help my mom with her bills, and now we have this new car payment, and the math just was not working out.
And that's when you were brutally introduced to the cost of not having that financial buffer.
Yes, and that's when I also realized what that knot in my stomach was about. It was the fact that we had no emergency savings. And we done so many things right. We built credit, we paid bills on time, but we never built that financial cushion for when life happens. And I had to make a choice. I ended up sacrificing payments on the car. So as a result, my credit took a major hit and it stayed damaged for a very long time.
And your story illustrates that emergencies don't always wait for you to recover. You were hit with a second crisis while still vulnerable.
Yeah, they don't wait for you to recover no matter how many emergencies come at you. So a couple years later, while we were still trying to rebuild, my mom got injured at work. We hadn't even had the chance to properly establish an emergency fund from COVID, and now we're facing another one. The financial pressure really became overwhelming, and my mom ended up getting evicted from her home.
That is a testament to the domino effect of financial vulnerability. But you made it through. What were the first solution focused steps you took with your coaches to stop reacting and start rebuilding?
So the first step was mastering the budget. I had to get honest about where every dollar was going, and I had to stop hoping and start telling my money exactly what to do. That was the crucial step of taking control back.
So, based on your experience, what are the three lessons you live by now, focusing on goals, budgets, and buffers?
So first, emergency savings is not optional. That is the biggest one. That without the safety net, one unexpected event can create a domino effect that takes years to recover from. The second is that emergencies do not come one at a time. That is why building that financial cushion has to be a top priority, not something that you get to eventually. And third, I learned that my goal setting needed a contingency plan. Now, I set the goal, but I budget for the risk.
Terrence, thank you so much for sharing that powerful journey of financial honesty and reset. So, Terrence's story provides the human context for our three pillars of financial resilience framework. This is a solution focused approach to ensure your financial life is built on rock and not sand. Terrace's original goal, buying a family house, was fantastic, but it lacks the specific, measurable steps needed for success. True goal setting must be smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Every quarter, you need to check, are my goals still relevant? If Terrace had checked that goal against the reality of the expensive car payment, he may have scaled back the car purchase to protect the larger house goal. Goals aren't fixed, they must be proactively reviewed and adjusted.
That is where I went wrong. The vision was there, but the planning lacked the flexibility to account for life's real risks.
The budget is your control panel. Terrence mentioned that getting honest about where the money was going was the first action he took to regain control. We champion a zero based budget approach. This means every single dollar is assigned a job. Income minus expenses minus savings equals zero. This forces you to be intentional with every dollar, turning vague spending into actionable savings. Your budget must include a line item for your goal, and for Terrence, it would be down payment fund and a non negotiable line item for his emergency buffer.
Before my budget was reactive, now it's proactive. I can look at my budget and see exactly how much I'm putting toward my emergency fund this month, and it turns the entire process from overwhelming into a regular checklist.
Right. This is the most important lesson Terrence learned the hard way. Building a buffer is the firewall against the financial domino effect. Your immediate goal for your buffer should be $1,000 to cover minor, unexpected expenses. Your next non negotiable goal can be to fund 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. This must be held in a separate but accessible and high yield savings account, not in your checking account, and certainly not in the stock market. This money has one job to protect your life when everything else fails.
Yep. Right now, my main focus is building a solid emergency fund so that if something happens again, and something always happens, I'm prepared. I don't want to see those hard times again, and I definitely don't want my family to go through that stress. So, for anyone listening who's in that position where you're doing okay but don't have savings yet, please start now. Even if it's small, because that cushion isn't just money, it's peace of mind.
And that is a perfect summation of the reset. Financial resilience is built on strong goals, disciplined budgets, and a rock solid buffer. Terrace, thank you again for being a solution focused example of that resilience. And for our listeners, if you are ready to implement the 3 pillars, we have a free worksheet in the show notes to help you set smart goals and begin your zero based budget. Okay, so let's dive into something that usually feels about as comfortable as a pair of shoes 2 sizes too small. Starting over. Specifically with this financial reset. Maybe you're staring at a mountain of holiday debt, or perhaps you just realized your fun spending has become your everyday spending. Maybe there are some goals you would like to reach and accomplish, or maybe perhaps you don't need to start over, but you want to continue the discipline on good habit spending. Sometimes we promise ourselves strict budgets and no more lattes and perfection. But here's the truth. You cannot shame yourself into a sustainable future. So, we're going to talk about the most important tool in your financial kit and not that budget spreadsheet, but grace. Yes, I'm talking about you. When starting a reset, we often treat ourselves like a broken machine that needs fixing. We expect to flip a switch and suddenly have the discipline of a monk. But you aren't a machine. You are a human with habits, emotions, and history. So the reality is, we're going to mess up. You'll forget to log an expense, or you'll have a bad day at work and buy takeout because you just can't face the stove. I understand. And in those moments, the old you wants to say, see, I knew you couldn't do this. You might as well just quit. That's that perfectionism trap. It tells you that if the journey isn't flawless, then it isn't worth taking. Grace is the bridge between a mistake and a correction. Without grace, a single $10 grocery store impulse buy can simply turn into a 200 giving up spree. Grace allows you to say that happened And it's okay. What's my next best move? And often when I have to extend myself grace, I acknowledge the mistake and then I say, now what? Because if it's not going to help you make your first move, then there's no need to sulk and guilt about it. We aren't perfect, but what's in the meaning of a reset? Not necessarily that you never fail, but how you get back up. It's all about the comeback. So, how do we actually do this? Give ourselves financial grace. Well, here are 3 ways to extend grace to yourself during your reset. First, you can separate your worth from your net worth. Your bank account is a data point, not a moral judgment. Having debt does not make you a bad person. Having bad credit doesn't make you a bad person. And bankruptcy doesn't make you a bad person. Just like being rich doesn't make you a good person. It makes you a person with a math problem to solve. Use learning language. Instead of saying, I failed my budget today, try saying, I learned that I'm prone to spending when I'm tired. That is so true. One feels like a dead end, but the other feels like a strategy. And third, the 24-hour rule. If you fall off the wagon, give yourself exactly 24 hours to feel the frustration, and then, this is the hard part, drop it. That's it. Just drop it. You don't need to carry yesterday's financial sins into today's decisions. A financial reset isn't a sprint to a finish line. However, it's the beginning of a new relationship with your life and your money. And just like any other relationship, it requires patience. So, if you're starting your reset this month, I want you to take a deep breath. Look at the numbers. Yes. Make the plan? Absolutely. But carry some kindness for the person who got you this far, even if they made mistakes. They were just trying to get by. And for Terance, he made the best decision with the information that he was given at the time that he had. We all have different types of lifestyles, and we will all have different kinds of hurdles that we will have to achieve. However, we must give ourselves grace about our past decisions in order to move forward. Now, with this being in mind, make that plan today by using the resources listed in the description. Now, the new you gets to lead with wisdom and most importantly, grace. Thanks for listening to this month's episode of Financially Forward. And please feel free to make an appointment with any of the financial coaches with the Learner Support Team. Thanks for listening.